We all have fond memories of the playground. Hours upon hours spent in blissful childhood abandon, racing around the local park, climbing the monkey bars, and seeing if you could get even higher on the swings than your best friend. And then, of course, there's the slide. Who doesn't love a slide? Only you and the force of gravity pulling you down through a straight or spiral tube. Those few seconds of excitement, that rush of not knowing whether you'll come out the other end of the slide or not, that's enough of a thrill for any kid. Of course, you would always come tumbling out of the mouth of the slide every time, at worst with an odd but innocent friction burn on your leg or arm. But what if, one day, you didn't come out of the other end? Or worse, what if the place at the end of the slide wasn't the world you left behind when you slid through the entrance? It doesn't seem all that likely to happen, right? Well, you've obviously never taken a trip down SCP-1562, better known as the Tunnel Slide. As its moniker suggests, SCP-1562 is a slide, or it at least appears to be an ordinary tunnel slide. You know, the kind that you would easily find at any kid's park, jungle gym, or indoor play area. Just over 2 meters high and almost 3.5 meters long. And for the most part, it is a completely normal slide. If you were to just sit in it and glide down it feet first, nothing would happen. Then again, if SCP-1562 was an ordinary everyday piece of a playground, then the SCP Foundation would not have such a vested interest in it. They definitely wouldn't be keeping it locked up in quarantine, secured in Testing Lab 46-V of Site-24. And if any Foundation agents ask, you didn't hear that from us, by the way. The door to the lab is kept locked at all times. No member of personnel is even allowed near the slide unless granted special clearance to do so by Foundation researcher Dr. Carver. So what is it that makes this thing so special? Well, for one, SCP-1562 was first recovered by the Foundation from a defunct, abandoned playground. The location of this playground has been redacted, but it was known to be on the outskirts of a town where a number of young children had been reported missing. Does SCP-1562 contain some sort of clue as to where these children were taken? Perhaps some piece of forensic evidence left behind by a child-snatching anomaly from another dimension? Not quite. SCP-1562 is the thing that took those children. You see, the slide's anomalous properties require very specific circumstances in order to activate. Like we mentioned earlier, if you were just sitting on your butt while you were sliding down it, you would escape unscathed. Laying flat on your back? That is also a safe option. Even flailing yourself about, spinning and rolling and waving your arms, changing position on the way down would mean that nothing anomalous would appear to happen. However, if someone enters SCP-1562 and travels down in head first, laying on their stomach with their arms tucked at their side, almost in a plank position, then that is when strange things start to happen. That is when a person finds out what happened to those missing children. Only about 15 centimeters from the opening of the slide, a person sliding down on their front, head first, with arms by their sides will disappear right before exiting SCP-1562. In an instant, they will simply be gone. No longer in the slide or even relocated to anywhere nearby. To make matters worse, every single person that this has happened to has never been found again. They literally have vanished off the face of the earth. Unfortunately, there isn't much that can be done to prevent this. During testing, the Foundation quickly learned that tethering a safety line to a subject does little to stop them from disappearing. They cannot be pulled back from wherever it is that the slide sends them. The rope they are attached to is simply cut and goes slack from the moment that a person is taken by the slide. Now that sounds like the whole story, right? Children are going missing and the Foundation learns it's because of SCP-1562, some kind of interdimensional portal within a playground slide. So they acquire the slide, take it away and keep it locked up securely where it can't cause any more disappearances. End of story. Except that's not quite the end. No. The one thing it's still possible to do once someone has disappeared down the slide is to stay in contact with them. The SCP Foundation has expended a number of test subjects by sending them sliding down SCP-1562 just to learn what's on the other side. Just where does the slide take them? Luckily, tests like this are precisely what the Foundation has D-Class personnel for. So what happened when the Foundation sent some D-Classes on a one-way joyride down the slide? Well, one test involved a D-Class designated D-2445, who disappeared into SCP-1562 but was given a two-way radio to communicate directly with Dr. Darretts, one of the research staff. D-2445 reported that he felt himself in a small, cramped tunnel and quickly requested to be let back out. Dr. Darretts had neglected to tell D-2445 that was impossible and that no one ever came back from inside the slide. While it was too dark to see anything, the prisoner described still being laid on his front, but feeling like there were rocks or dirt surrounding him on all sides. Realizing that he barely had enough room to move or even lift his head, D-2445 again requested to be let out of SCP-1562. As the unfortunate D-Class grew increasingly more unsettled by the movement-restricting environment, Dr. Darretts revealed that the lifeline tethering D-2445 back to the Foundation had been severed upon their disappearance into the slide. Panicking, D-2445 managed to move forward slightly and realized that his head had hit something. A shoe. A tiny child's shoe. Communication with D-2445 was called to a halt, and the Foundation's researchers discussed possible ways that they could retrieve the prisoner. Although most of them probably knew at this point that this task was likely impossible, this test may have taken place before the Foundation realized that return from SCP-1562 was impossible. The plan was that another D-Class would be sent into the slide. Once again, they would be attached to a tether line and be carrying video and audio recording equipment, along with a GPS tracker and a headlamp. Reaching out to D-2445, Dr. Darretts relayed this plan to him. D-2445 immediately begged to be set free from SCP-1562, as the doctor attempted to calm him down, but to little effect. Something had scared him, truly terrified him. A sound coming from somewhere within the tunnel. It started talking, D-2445 claimed. When Dr. Darretts asked for clarity, the D-Class replied saying that a little boy had tried to speak to him, but that the child had made little sense. He just kept asking where he was, and I told him I didn't know, but I don't think he was really talking to me, because he didn't respond to my voice, and he told me to stop crying when I was actually sort of calm. When asked if this child had moved at all, D-2445 said that he was unsure. He started screaming and I told him to shut up, but he just kept screaming and crying and asking for his mommy. And then he finally stopped, and shortly after that, you contacted me again. Please get me out now. Dr. Darretts tried to reassure the man, to little avail, and communication with D-2445 was cut off after he claimed something was wrong with his chest. Shortly after the Foundation lost communication with D-2445, another member of D-Class was sent into the slide after him. This subject, referred to officially as D-8600, had been specifically selected for this task thanks to his small stature. Dr. Darretts and the other Foundation researchers testing SCP-1562 believed that the man's thinner body type would allow D-8600 to better navigate the tunnel that the slides seemed to transport people to. And you can probably guess what happened next. Just like all the others that had been sent down the slide, D-8600 was trapped. His lifeline was cut the moment that he vanished inside the tunnel slide. On top of this, the GPS tracker that this thinner D-Class had been issued with seemed to not be working properly. Its signal could not be correctly traced, and without an accurate fix, there was no way to determine the location to which SCP-1562 was transporting its victims, if it was even in this universe. Additionally, the video feed from the camera D-8600 was carrying also failed to connect, with only audio from his radio being recovered by the research team. Contacting D-8600, Dr. Darretts was informed by this new D-Class that his headlamp had stopped working the second he had arrived in the same cave or tunnel as earlier test subjects. Before long, by shimmying through the area on his arms, D-8600 bumped into a foot, believed to be belonging to D-2445. While he could barely see anything, D-8600 could hear D-2445's voice, and this was being faintly picked up via his radio. However, as he and Dr. Darretts tried to talk to the first prisoner, his words began to sound all too familiar. I don't know, some sort of very small tunnel. "It's really cramped. Can you get me out now?" Followed by, "No, it's too dark. I can't see anything, and I'm stuck." It was all just a recording from what D-2445 had said when he first arrived after SCP-1562 had sent him into the tunnel. D-8600 did not realize this at first and attempted to help his fellow prisoner, hoping to pull him out of wherever they were trapped. Dr. Darretts tried desperately to explain that D-2445 was just repeating his half of an earlier conversation, but D-8600 hardly noticed that was the case. He gripped the other D-Class's ankles and told the doctor to pull them out of the tunnel. The doctor revealed that once again the tether line had been severed, but D-8600 refused to believe that escape was impossible. He tried to worm his way back the way he had come, leaving D-2445 still repeating his words from earlier. "He just kept asking me where he was, and I told him I didn't know. But I don't think he was really talking to me because he didn't respond to my voice, and he told me to stop crying when I was actually sort of calm. I don't think so. He started screaming and I told him to shut up, but he kept just screaming and crying and asking for his mommy. Then he finally stopped, and shortly after that you contacted me again. Please get me out now. Please hurry, my chest is really starting to hurt." After yelling at him to stop talking multiple times, D-8600 noted that D-2445 had finally gone quiet. The D-Class also remarked that the air was starting to taste stale, and hoped that there would be enough oxygen for him to get back. Then, just like his predecessor, communication with D-8600 came to an abrupt stop. Dr. Darretts was no longer able to reach him on the radio. There was nothing but static. The Foundation was unable to re-establish contact with either of the two D-Class personnel lost inside SCP-1562, and any future testing of the tunnel slide was suspended. To this day, none of us know what exactly happened to the victims of the tunnel slide. Where were they taken? What had taken them? What was making the prior victims repeat their ominous words? As horror author Stephen King once put it, it's the unanswered questions that stays with us the longest. But the next time you decide to thrill your inner child by taking a jaunt to your local kiddie park, you may just find out for yourself. Now go check out SCP-3001 Red Reality and Trapped in a Game SCP-1733 Season Opener for more horrifying anomalous places you'd really hate to be trapped inside.